And the great advantage that we've had of traveling around this country, and we've been to probably 300 schools, including Texas A&M, where Brenda was before she was here. We get not only to, I think, feel reaffirmed of how much feminism is out there, and people read the Susan Faludi article that was circulating in Harper's, but it was an article that sort of was condemning young women for not being feminist, and I was like, I don't think she's been to any of the campuses that I've been to, because I feel constantly reaffirmed that there is feminism out there. Not always agrees in ways that I agree 100%, but definitely I see feminism reflected back to me all the time and everywhere we go. In the South, in the North, in big schools, in small schools, in religious conservative places, and in progressive places. And the greater advantage of these sort of 10 plus years going to all these campuses is how much we learn when we're on the campuses, and how much, because of the activism and the feminism that is there, we're forced to sort of re-examine some of our beliefs and some of our values. And one of the first lectures we gave after Manifesta was published, somebody asked us about transgenderism and sort of, and its absence in Manifesta. And we were just sort of like, well, that's a trend that'll go away in like a year, so I'm not sure why we would have needed to devote many more pages to it. So I don't think that was exactly our answer. But it was a challenge, and we sort of talked about it at the time, because, and it still is true today, that most of the conversation around trans issues was happening in the setting of sort of queer theory and the gay straight alliances on campuses, or the LGBT groups. And yet, for us, it was about gender, not sexuality, and so it seemed like it was bifurcating a conversation, or compartmentalizing a conversation that should have been happening in a bigger space about gender, not in a space more exclusively about sexuality. And so, but we did have to, and Jennifer and I have talked a lot about this, that some of the first trans people that we came into contact with were trans men who were taking up a lot of space. And it was very challenging to us at first to sort of say, am I reacting to you as a woman, or am I reacting to you as a man? And what does that say about my own limitations about gender, and who's allowed to take up space? And is it my fault for giving you space? And so it was, again, sort of because somebody was raising it, it allowed us to sort of reflect back and say, what are our own limitations around this? And not only can we accept maybe that there will always be limitations, but how can we push ourselves to go further? And then forced ourselves into settings where we were asking questions of people that worked more specifically on this issue, and asked them to sort of educate us on how we could feel a greater connection to this issue. One of them that sort of predates Manifesta, but there was a moment right after Manifesta came out, and we were doing a reading. It was actually right after Grassroots came out, our second book, in New York City, and a sort of a contentious person, Elizabeth Wurtzel, who wrote Prozac Nation and Bitch, sort of stood in the back, and she said, but what are you going to do to the feminist who says she's pro-life? And we, I think, got wrangled and sort of didn't really respond appropriately. And I had previously been asked this question by a high school student when she was 17 and I was maybe like 24, and I said, absolutely, you can't be a pro-life and be a feminist, I'm sorry, next question. And Angel, who was a person who founded the Third Wave Foundation with me and did a lot of work in the early days, was on the panel with me, and another question came up, and she said, well, I just want to revisit Amy's answer, because I don't think that's true. I think you can be a feminist and be pro-life. And I got so mad at her, because I thought as feminists we were supposed to agree, and I was like, I can't believe you're doing this disservice to these high school students and presenting feminism as not aligned. And also, why did you just lie to her? You can't be pro-life and be a feminist. And then forced me, and then really forced us as we started traveling, to really examine what people were saying to us. And I think what we heard initially, and this is where we were too entrenched with the second wave, we heard people saying, do I have your permission to bomb abortion clinics and murder abortion doctors and picket clinics and stand in the way of women wanting abortion and call myself a feminist? When in fact, what most people were asking us, nobody was asking us that exactly. What most people were asking us is, do I have a right to be really personally conflicted about this? I'm not sure I want to wear a no more coat hanger button, because that just doesn't fit with my values. I'm religious and I just don't know how my parents would react to it. Whatever it was pretty good reasons people had for feeling some level of discomfort around this issue. And nobody was asking us, do I have the right to stand in another woman's way? But they were just saying, do I have the right to be conflicted? And absolutely. And initially we tried to sort of take what we were hearing out to other people who worked sort of more specifically and strategically on the pro-choice side of the issue, Planned Parenthood, NARAL, and we were met with utter resistance. And they would say to us, but that is pro-choice. Pro-choice is the more inclusive. And for a while, we sort of bought that. It was like, yeah, that's true. And then after a while, it didn't feel right anymore, because it was like, I know that that's what you think, and that you think it's pro-choice, but the fact is that the people we're interacting with see pro-choice as synonymous with pro-abortion. And I know, yes, we can blame it on the religious right, and we can blame it on conservative America or Newt Gingrich or whoever we want to blame it on, but that is just a fact, that is how people often hear the pro-choice label is pro-abortion. And so we have a responsibility to, if we're trying to expand this conversation and to be more realistic about where people are on it, to be more honest about some of our levels of discomfort around it. And even in incredibly pro-choice settings, we came into contact with a number of people who were judgmental about women's choices. It was like, well, obviously the Octomom, she should have had an abortion. But, I mean, not that other woman who, I mean, she's a teenager. I mean, she really should have consulted with her parents. I mean, it's not best for her life. And you just could see people revealing, even in settings where the label was, we're all pro-choice, you could see the moment they were given some opportunity express this level